we like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Welcome to the Supernatural Hour.
Hey, good to be here.
Oh, I'm Ravyn. Sorry, forgot that part.
Hey, Ravyn, I'm Rogue.
That should be like at least my most important part.
This is Doc.
And Chad's here too.
So we are coming to you from the attic of despair. Is that what we're calling our place? But it's bigger. It's a bigger attic of despair.
A larger
it
attic of
grows.
despair.
Rogue
Yes.
is out of the corner.
I know no one puts Rogue in the corner.
No one put, well, they did, but I'm out now.
We pulled her out of the corner.
Out of the corner.
So for the business, we're going to have an investigation at Wheeler Farm Saturday, July 31st from 8 p.m. till midnight. We're looking forward to this. That's in South
Murray.
Salt Lake, Murray.
Murray. About 9th East, 5600 South-ish.
Here's the thing: people go to Wheeler Farm all the time. I've never been there.
Really?
I mean, I went there once to scout it out for this investigation, but that's it.
There's all kinds of things to do at Wheeler Farm. They have a lot of nice events. It's a nice place.
And duck ponds.
And when we were there, it
Yes.
was colder than cold.
It
Which-
won't be this time.
No, it's hotter than hot now.
It will be. Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the cold.
No, I think I don't need the coat this time.
No.
After a while, it's like, okay, I've seen it. Let's get back in the car. I'm cold.
Right.
But it's a very large venue with some really cool buildings. We won't be able to go inside of many of the buildings, but we'll be able to go on the outside in the different areas. A lot of different, it's a very large venue, so there'll be a lot of places to go.
And they have
And-
ducks.
And it's historic.
Yes, it is. Yes,
That's
it
why they
is.
call it the Wheeler Historic Farm, right?
Yes.
Are there any spooky stories from Wheeler Farm?
I'm sure there are because there have been groups from Utah that have investigated there before. So we're definitely not the first, but this will be our first time. So I personally don't have any spooky stories from Wheeler Farm.
I have investigated a long time ago with a group, and we were allowed in the main house. I didn't have any experiences, but the main house is supposedly haunted. So that's what gets the teams out there, is to get into the main house.
So we will be around the main house. We can maybe see if we can
Right.
get in. We'll see how that works.
Maybe.
We've got time.
We might be able to pull a string or two.
Anyway,
But
we'll figure
be
that
around
out.
the farm, and I'm sure it's going to be a pretty active venue.
Oh yeah, I've never heard any complaints about it from the people that have been there. So
Perfect.
And we had our first Patreon Zoom meeting with some of our insiders. It was a really exciting evening. We were able to get some ideas on what we're going to do for our Patron Insider event that's accessible to those people that are patrons. We're going to be going to Rock Canyon Park and have a dinner, and it'll be a really neat event. So if you're interested in looking into that, consider signing up and becoming a patron.
I've heard some stories about Rock Canyon Park. Lots of people falling to their doom there.
yes, we had all sorts of. Where we thought we were going to have activity when we went there before was not where we had activity, but the activity that popped up was cooler than what we had planned, if that makes any sense at all.
Fair enough.
Or
Okay.
anticipated.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't really plan activity, but
We're going to plan for a ghost to show up. I mean, you're always hoping, right?
Oh,
Well, we wouldn't be ghost hunters, right? If we could do that,
That's true. When you go deer hunting, you look for a deer.
right?
You hope for a
You
deer.
have to do a little work.
You plan for a deer.
All right. So we have not had any residentials in the last few weeks. However, we have been to the Barbary Coast, and we did our public investigation with Advanced Paranormal.
And that was awesome.
That was awesome. That was Friday night, the 11th, the 12th. I don't remember what day.
18th.
The 18th. See, that's how.
But it
I'm a
was
week
really
behind.
Saturday morning because it was 1 a.m. and
Yeah,
that
so it
kind of-
was Friday into Saturday.
Right.
Even though we said that very many times, there was still some confusion with some people, but we got her done.
We did. We did. We had a lot of fun. We had some of our Patreons were there, so thank you. But we got some really good evidence.
Okay, first of all, hang on. We got to talk about the food first.
Okay.
You know how I've been talking about their cream cheese stuffed pretzel drizzled with chocolate and caramel? That's so amazing.
Fabulous.
They don't have it anymore.
And you should see the look on her face, is that how upset she is.
When they told me that night, I was like, oh, because it was so good. And it's not them. There's something wrong with the people that they get it from. They're not able to get it anymore for some reason. They would still be carrying it if their vendor would come through. But they still have some amazing desserts. I don't remember what she told me, but we're going to go up one of these days and try the apple pie with ice cream, because
Pie
that's
a la mode,
good.
yeah.
And there's a couple other desserts too, but don't go there just for that cream cheese stuffed pretzel, because you're not going to get it. But go there for other stuff. So anyway, okay.
Interesting.
And then when we were
Thursday
there,
nights, their little flat iron steak
It's
dinner
amazing.
for $10 is very good.
I've had some of their
Salad.
burgers. Their burgers are good. And then that night they brought out chips and salsa, and those chips were amazing. I could have eaten those without the salsa.
Yeah,
were
they
so
fried
good.
them up. They were, it wasn't like store-bought corn chips.
No.
These were fried on premise, and they came out warm, and they had a really good salsa with them.
And they brought out chicken fingers that were amazing. So definitely go there for the food if you don't go ghost hunting.
Yes, they took very, very good care of us. We want to thank them for that.
So we kind of broke the venue up into 3 different areas. We had the outside by the memorial and by the creek. We had the main level, and then there was the basement. And we had already gone out there and done a preliminary investigation, because you want to make sure that you actually have activity before you have people pay you to come out. And downstairs we knew would be crazy.
Right.
When we went to test it, outside was a little hard because it's right there on State Street, and we went a little earlier, and there's a lot of traffic. There was not as much traffic when you're there at 2 and 4 in the morning.
No, there's
Um,
not, amazingly enough.
Yeah, at 7 o'clock in downtown Salt Lake, there's a lot of noise on State Street, weirdly enough.
But not at 2 a.m.?
No, it was actually quiet outside. But I thought that, and then we went in the basement, and we knew that the basement was going to be crazy active.
Right.
And we really didn't do a whole lot on the main floor, but I figured the main floor, where all the bar activity is, and, where people are dancing on the tables, Michelle, and, the drinking and, the getting drunk and getting rowdy and fights, just, normal
Right.
bar incidences that happen on a semi-regular basis. I thought there would be a lot more activity on the main level. There wasn't. However, what I felt like, you could feel, sorry, our pooch has got the itchies apparently. You could feel about 100 spirits there. I mean, it was packed. But I got the impression that no one's ever ghost hunted there before, and they were kind of all like, whoa, what are you guys doing? It's like almost like they were nervous. I think
Interesting.
when we go back again, they'll recognize us and they'll realize, oh, okay, we know what you're doing, and I think they'll be more likely
More
to
active.
come forth and talk to us.
Yeah,
Exactly.
one of our other investigators, I talked to him a little bit about it, and he goes, I can feel there's people here, that but there's not a lot of interaction, but there
Right.
are people, entities there in the upstairs, but there wasn't a lot of, evidence gathering per se, or that kind of stuff.
Right. I would agree with that.
But downstairs
Absolutely.
and outside was a different story.
Right. So with my team outside, we worked with the Connects box, and we were able to see someone up in the tree.
Yeah, so we've got pictures of these, and we're slowly going to put them up on TikTok and on the Facebook page. We don't want to put it all up too much. We'll give you some anticipation. Sorry, what else did you see outside?
Well, for me, on that first time out, we were getting some tracers. I don't know if we actually captured anything in a video. We could see them through the phone. But that, for my team going outside, that was the highlight. But that was a pretty good highlight.
Oh, yeah.
The stick figure up in the tree, and it's not showing anybody else, just the stick figure in the tree.
Right, and then
It's
if I
pretty cool.
remember right, didn't the stick figure have his hand around its neck, or
Oh, I don't know.
I thought I heard that it had its hand around its neck.
It kind of looked like a hanging. I mean, because it was up in the tree, and it did kind of look like, an entity that had been hung
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Yeah,
So I missed
so-
that in looking at it.
yeah, Chuck sent me the picture, and I looked at it very briefly, but it was kind of busy when I was looking at it, so I didn't look at it closely.
Right. We'll have to get a better look at that one.
Yeah.
Alright.
So the highlight for my team anyway, it was down in the basement. We had a lot of activity going on down there.
Sounds like it.
We had one gal got punched from something that came out of the portal. One of our investigators that comes with us a lot said he almost went, because when we were there the first time, Lucy poked in for just a minute or two.
Right. Did you talk to her?
No,
No.
when we were there that night, she didn't make an appearance. But someone said, I wonder if that gut punch was her.
From Lucy.
Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, we asked if she was there, and that night it was a no.
Interesting.
Um,
But, you know, it is the Barbary Coast. It could have been anyone. And as we were speaking, there are many, many residentials, should we say? Residents there.
Residents.
And it could have been any of those angry bikers from the past, maybe. You know, what are you doing in my space?
right, and then they had that Black Widow Club that they would have
Right.
down there.
And you know, maybe they didn't like a
So what's
young
the
girl
Black Widow
out of the
Club?
way.
Just kind of a club, and the initiation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the initiation was you had to drink Jaeger with Tabasco sauce, and then you drew a circle around your belly button, and then someone had to lick the circle.
Okay.
I didn't make this up. I'm
It
just,
was,
I'm just reciting.
You know, it was a group within the group of friends. You know, it was just something fun amongst
Little
the
secret.
boys.
Little secret society going on. But there's like a Black Widow hanging from, like, not a real one, but a fake one.
And they're all painted on the walls. And
So we had the gut punch down there, and I've got some actually really cool pictures that have, to my knowledge, no paranormal stuff in them, but I did get some pictures of the Black Widow Club area because it's kind of cool and
excellent.
spooky.
yeah, so it'd be good to put that up there so people can kind of have a visual of what we're talking about.
Right, but one of our members, he has this app that he downloaded on his phone, and it looks like a thermal image, but it's not, and I don't remember for the life of me what it's called.
A proximity image.
But it's a proximity, so the closer it is, the hotter it looks if you're thinking on thermal camera. So if it's close, you're red, orange, yellow.
Yellows.
If you're far away, you're green, blue, purple. So at one point we were sitting around the portal that's in the basement of the Barbary. Everybody was stationary. Nobody was moving. And when you look at his, and I think I've already put this up on TikTok, and it'll get on the Facebook page at some point. You can't have it all at once. You got to have some anticipation. But we're all sitting there, and you see me in the foreground asking questions with the dowsing rods. And then you see a little figure, because this portal we've already determined is being kind of watched over by two gnomish, kind of weak type threes. I mean, Lucy's not watching over this portal. She'll pop her head through every now and then, but you can see one little bent over gnome figure just book on out of there. And then as you look at this, you'll see something that almost looks like a second one, but it's not. And even Ethan said, that's not anything, that's me, moving around, and there was a cord there. And he says, but watch. And so you see the first little gnomey figure just book off, and it almost has a gait to it. I mean, it looks like someone walking very fast. And then you see kind of a rustle of, the cord. But then very clearly a few seconds later, you see the second little figure take off. And the interesting thing about this is it wasn't too much after this. We asked the dowsing rods to point where these two little type 3s were. And it pointed over by the Black Widow area, which is the direction that they ran in according to that proximity detector.
I love it.
It was awesome.
I love it.
So you see them just going, nope, we're out of here. You guys are scary.
Perfect.
So it was fun. I think one of our investigators had a few tracer photos. So as soon as I can get a hold of those, we'll get those posted up too. So it was fun. In
Excellent.
fact, at one point you came up to me, Rogue, and said, it's 4, should we start wrapping up? And I was like, what? Because when I first got there, I thought, I am not going to make it through tonight. It's 1 o'clock and I might die right now.
Right. It was kind of tough. I'll have to say I drank 3 Red Bulls, and that wasn't good on my stomach. I don't drink a lot of Red Bull, and that wasn't good, but
So
I stayed awake.
You gave me a Red Bull. I've never had a Red Bull before.
Oh, uh-huh.
So by about 3, I was like, I probably won't sleep till next week.
That's like me every shift, guys.
I told him that's who I learned it from.
2 at least.
There's a reason I'm not a doctor. Yeah, so at the very beginning, the brain fog was real, but the Red Bull cleared it out. I grew some wings.
That's good. That's good, because I kind of lived in the brain fog of just like, I'm in motion and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that was pretty much, that was it for me.
But it was fun. We'll definitely go back, and we hope when we do, you can make it this time, because it's a very active area.
All the guests had a great time. In fact, they didn't leave. They stand around out in the parking lot afterwards until almost 5, talking about the investigation and
Really?
how cool it was. And
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, and we know because we were there with them,
oh,
and they were talking about things.
Yeah, we felt like it was rude to be like, bye, we're out.
right.
See ya.
Well, I did that because I
Yeah, but you
Had to
you
go
went
to
straight
work.
to work, though.
yeah. So that
Yeah,
was
but the patron or all of the people that came to the event really enjoyed it. I think that it was a great event.
Yeah, it was super fun. I'm excited to go back. Doc, do you have a bucket list for us?
I do have a bucket list item. I was going to talk about Roswell, but I've already been there. So I decided to talk. Well, I've actually been here too, but I don't think people know about this. So everyone's heard of the Roswell incident. Have you ever heard of the Aurora, Texas UFO incident?
You know, it sounds familiar, like I may have heard about it once, but if you ask me to tell you about it, I got nothing.
Was there an alien captured on there?
There's an alien buried in a cemetery in
Ooh.
Aurora, Texas.
Really?
Allegedly. So the story goes, this is back in 1897. So this
Oh.
predates Roswell by like 50 years. And the story was that there was a craft that had a pilot who was, quote, not of this world, who crashed through a windmill and into somebody's farm in Aurora, Texas.
I think I seen a movie like that.
Cowboys and aliens.
Yeah, maybe that's where that came from, guys. I don't know. But the pilot was buried in the Aurora Cemetery. Originally, they had a stone placed as a marker for the gravesite, but somebody removed it. So
So
But no
Any,
one
like,
removed the body?
nope, they removed the stone. And so now people are having, I guess, difficulty finding where this
Locating
alien
it.
was buried. I mean, this did
Because we
happen
all
in
wanna
So
1897.
they've got these satellite things that they can use in Egypt, and they ping
To
it
probe the
so,
ground?
so they can like see. They need that.
They
in
need to get a
Aurora.
little ground
Look at how
penetrating
excited
radar
Ravyn
going on.
is.
That's what they need.
She's ready. Let's go find it.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm
Like,
going to go.
that
zoom
kind of
this
sounds
dude.
exciting.
You know, it's crazy. 1897. I don't know who was even thinking about UFOs in 1897. Since we didn't have, planes, just weird that there would be a craft that someone would describe.
I didn't even take it to there in my brain. We weren't even flying.
We weren't
in
even really flying. So
And they had some aircraft
yeah,
crash.
they said a craft with a pilot apparently who
Just so nonchalant.
yeah,
Or
and they
you're
And I
nonchalant.
wouldn't think of the 1897 having the big UFO craze like they did in the
No.
50s.
And I think that's why not many people have heard of this story, but apparently the pilot died. They buried it in the cemetery. They took the scraps from the craft and buried it in a well
What?
on the site. And allegedly, a new owner of the farm tried to clear the well out to get clean water and got really sick from drinking the water from the well. Got like severe cases
radioactive?
of arthritis is what they claimed. Yeah. And there's a theory that this may have been from contaminants from this aircraft that was thrown down the well.
I have questions. I need to go to Texas.
I need pictures.
Now, the amazing thing about this, so I lived in the Fort Worth area. This is just north of Fort Worth.
And you didn't go?
I didn't go when I was living there, but I went when I went back to visit friends.
Oh, okay.
I took a quick detour because it was only about 20 minutes away from where my house was, and I was like, and I made a goal to do it, but I was pretty busy with residency and whatnot, so I never got out there.
Okay, I'm gonna prolong this a little bit. Anticipation is kind of the word of the day, but if you take little side trips with Doc, it's amazing. When we went to visit him in Texas, he took us on a side trip to see the Tiger
Lion
King.
Tiger
Oh
King.
yes, so I have met the Tiger King
Yeah.
Really?
I got a picture with the Tiger King.
When we went there, he wasn't there, but we've been to a zoo. Anyway, back to Aurora.
I became semi-famous at the hospital because they were like, "Oh my gosh, you know Joe Exotic?" I was like, "Yeah, he's throwing condoms at us." That was like his spiel. You'd go there, and he'd be in the cage with a tiger, and they'd just be like throwing condoms out of the crowd. He was an odd duck. Let's just say that.
Still is an odd
And
duck.
the entire gift shop was a Joe Exotic shrine.
Pretty much. You could get a velvet, the velvet Elvis. You could get a velvet Joe Exotic.
It's pretty impressive. But
Anyway.
yes, so yeah, we went and saw Joe Exotic before the whole, attempted murder thing. But it's interesting when you go to the Aurora Cemetery. There's actually a plaque there because it's a historical site, and even in the plaque they say, "Located in Aurora Cemetery is the gravestone." See if I can find this. Oh, this site is also well known because of the legend that a spaceship crashed nearby in 1897, and the pilot killed in the crash was buried here. So, interesting that that's on the Texas Historical Commission's plaque at the graveyard at the cemetery is this whole idea of a spaceman being buried there. So,
Well, I guess if you need to
like
get people to come, you got to get people to come one way or another, right?
Right.
heck yeah, we need to find a ground-penetrating radar. And we need to go find this alien.
Let's talk with our new
right.
team member. Chuck might have one.
He's probably got one.
He might.
He may
He's got
have one.
everything.
He does. You
So-
never know.
If you're looking, if you
Road
want to go see a
trip.
place that's 50 years, a alien spacecraft crash that's 50 years older than Roswell, head out to Aurora, Texas.
Okay,
I
yeah,
love
we
it.
gotta.
That's a good one.
We have a road trip we all got to take.
Yeah. Let's get a motorhome and go.
It's my birthday tomorrow. We could go tomorrow.
We could.
All right.
No,
Take me
we
away.
Can't. We can't. But that was.
I
my
liked
thought.
the idea for a second. I was gone. I was in the motorhome with you. I wasn't even driving. I was just riding with a smile on my face going, we're going somewhere. Yay.
Okay, so one of the things when we had our Patreon insiders Zoom meeting, which was a lot of fun, one of the things that they said that they wanted to hear was for each of us to give kind of a little spotlight on ourselves. Why we do this, what's our favorite part, just anything. So I thought, I will jump into the deep end and I'll start. So, spotlight on Ravyn. If you've listened to, back when the Supernatural Hour was the Wisps show, you've heard us talk about this a ton of times, but we have a lot of new listeners now, so some of you will not have heard this before. So, Castle and I, as you know, we're siblings. He and I have always been interested in the paranormal. Part of it might be just because we're weird and, whatever. But when we were little, our parents both worked, and they worked shift work, so sometimes they both worked at the same time. And so when that happened, we were actually tended by our great aunt. And our grandpa was the youngest, or second youngest of 8 children, and she was the oldest. So when she was tending us, she was well into her 70s, and it was kind of a family joke of, is she tending us or are we tending her, kind of a thing. And I think it was a little bit of both. But she was awesome. But she lived in a pretty haunted house. And when we were little, we didn't really realize it was haunted. And I don't know that we saw anything, but we could feel stuff. And long story short, when we started ghost hunting, we couldn't just go knock on the door and say, hi, can we ghost hunt your house? We think it's haunted, because people freak out. But we did some reconnaissance investigating, and there's a portal, a nasty portal in her back bedroom, which doesn't surprise me, because if you're in that back bedroom, it was like the spare bedroom. We called it the west bedroom because it was on the west side of the house. And that room was always 15 degrees colder, at least 15, 20 degrees colder than the rest of the house. And there was no reason for it to be. And anytime you were in there, you always felt like something was watching you. And sometimes she would let me have sleepovers, and I never had anyone actually spend the entire night there. They always, at midnight, had Dad come and get them. I started to have a complex. But see, it wasn't me. It was the creepy portal.
It was
in
the
closet.
ghost.
And
Or
then
an alien.
aliens.
I just had to throw that in there.
No, we buried the alien.
Oh,
We buried it. It's buried.
I forgot. It is buried. My bad.
And then in our early to mid 20s, Castle's 4.5 years younger than me, so in our early to mid 20s, we actually had an incident. I was in college in Cedar City. We had an incident with some people who were actually possessed by a demonic entity. If you read John Zaffis's book, can't remember which one it is.
Not haunted by the things you love?
No, The Demonologist.
That's Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Is that an Ed and Lorraine Warren book?
It is.
He's their nephew. It's close. I was close.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
It's all family.
I've read that book.
So if you've read The Demonologist, it kind of talks about some of the ways you can recognize a demonic possession, and one of them is a body part that's all, what's the word I want? Poofy.
Swollen?
Swollen.
Edematous?
Swollen. That's too fancy.
Ah. Indurated? No, I'm just kidding.
Swollen. And anyway, there's a couple down there, and the wife had a swollen from her elbow to her wrist, and she never told us why. And it was on her left side, which is part of it. And then he would speak in tongues. It was really creepy, and I won't go much more into that because it gets weird, but we dealt with that. And I think just all, and after that is when Castle first read The Demonologist. He's like, you got to read this, and I read it. I was like, oh. And from there, we just kind of talked about it a lot. And in end of 2011, I think, we went on a ghost hunt with Chunga. If you guys know Chunga, you've been on his hunts. Or if you've been on his hunts, he puts on a great investigation. And we went on one. And on the way home, we were just, oh, that was so great. Oh, and Castle's wife at the time looked at us and she said, why don't you just start your own group? And bing, the little light clicked on. So here we are. 11 years later? Am I doing math right? It's too late at night to do math.
In 2011? You're 10 years in. 2021.
Yeah, we're getting there. So anyway, as far as investigating, my favorite part, I think, is going and doing the residentials.
I enjoyed the residentials.
And, because, not that I'm the utmost world-renowned expert on ghost hunting, but, to be able to go in and, know some things that some people don't. Not everybody is interested in the paranormal. Not everybody, knows what to do if glasses start flying out of their cupboard. And, I wouldn't know what to do if my artery burst open, but Doc would.
Call
I hope
Doc.
so.
Probably call 911. But
That's a good first step.
yeah.
But we've gone into some homes and done some investigations where when we're done and you can, feel the heaviness is gone. And, I've been hugged so hard before I could hardly breathe. And that's, to me, rewarding.
Absolutely.
And then I'll get a text the next day that says, we've slept for the first time without having a nightmare in as long as I can remember. Thank you. So I like that. As far as probably my favorite investigation, I'm still going to go back to our first year or two in American Fork where we walked in and the guy was an artist and he was home alone one night with the baby. The wife was at work, kids were at a different parent's house, and he heard a woman's voice whisper in his ear something like, oh, what a pretty baby. And, he's thinking, it's like midnight, I'm rocking the baby back to sleep, there's nobody here. But he was an artist, and his art was fascinating. I love antiques, and so I loved his art. He would go to, DI and antique stores and Savers and find old, and I don't know if it was all antiques, I don't know what his criteria was, but it was either all antique-y, like actual antiques, or at least looked like antiques, because it all had that look.
Like hand-painted stuff?
Yeah, and he would put together like these little panorama boxes, creepy doll and a creepy little lamp, and I love creepy little stuff, so I thought it was fascinating. But we walked into this house, and I was like, holy cow, there's like 15,000 trigger objects in here. We are never going to figure out what's going on. But Chad had an app on his phone, and he just was recording, and we ended up speaking to 2 female spirits and a male spirit. And in Chad's recording, you can see legs, you can see like a dress, like someone's wearing a dress and walking. I mean, it's fascinating. And then we had on the table 6 different K2 meters, 5 or 6 of them, and we're all just sitting at the in the living room around this coffee table, and we're asking questions, and we're not really getting any answers. And so we told the homeowner, we said, why don't you ask questions? And just, he'd ask questions, and all 5 or 6 of those K2s would light up all the way to the red simultaneously. To this day, I've never seen anything like it. And we were there for 3 hours at least, just asking questions. And
How do you come up with 3 hours worth of questions?
oh, we did.
I'm just not that good.
Especially when they're yes/no questions.
Right?
I guess I'm assuming you probably had like some way to catch EVPs too.
So that night we actually had 2 investigations, and so Castle and Peaches were in Payson doing one, and then there's a bunch of us. I mean, there's 3 or 4 of them in Payson, and 3 or 4 of us in American Fork, and so they got done. They started at the same time. They got done. They had time to drive from Payson to American Fork, which is about a half an hour if you're not familiar with Utah geography. And we were still asking questions, but by the time they got there, we had pretty much, I don't want to say figured out everything, because no one figures out everything, but we'd figured out the basics. And they pretty much wanted us to know that they had a child that had drowned in a creek that had been in the backyard and was buried. And we asked if they wanted us to put a marker up, and they said, no, we don't want a marker. We just want someone to know that there's this child buried. But what was really cool is after we had asked all these yes/no questions and figured out what we had figured out, when Castle and Peaches got there, we
Describe who Peaches is.
So Peaches used to be part of our team. She moved on to do some other things, but she's a medium. She can see and hear spirits the way we can see and hear each other. And she came in and she was able to confirm. We didn't tell her, what we had figured out. She came in and we said, okay, tell us what's going on.
What you got?
And she told us everything that we had just spent, 2.5 hours figuring out. It was awesome. Anyway, so that's my little spotlight on me.
Very interesting.
Our paranormal junk drawer. When I was looking for something for our junk drawer, I thought, it's been a little while since we've done a stone. I thought I'll find a stone. We used to do a stone of the week.
I like that.
Or, I guess, stone of every other week.
The episode?
Stone of the episode. So I was kind of looking around, trying to find a stone we hadn't done, one that was really weird or, unusual or that no one had ever heard of before. And I ran across something that is not necessarily a stone, but kind of. Never heard of this before until now. So, as we've talked about stones before, and if you're familiar with stones, each stone has some different characteristics. Some might help bring you peace, some might be really good to meditate with, blah, blah, blah. But there are some characteristics. You know how when you have a headache and you Google symptoms to find out why you have a headache, and your doctor says don't do that, or you think you've got depression.
Please don't do that.
When you think you've got depression, you'll Google symptoms and you've got one of the 80 symptoms, and you're like,
And
So
you self-diagnose.
Yeah, I did that once and it was very bad. I will never do it again. So there's a thing called crystal people. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Crystal people.
Crystal people.
No,
No.
I've never heard
Can't
of
say I have.
So crystal people, and it's the same sort of a thing. It's like, I'm going to read you these characteristics. If you have most of them, it's a possibility. If you only have 1 or 2, don't get really excited. You got to have like a majority of these. But it says if you were born in or after the mid to late 90s, and you have, so nobody here.
Ain't nobody here. Nope.
Nobody in this room. But if you have most of these characteristics, you might be a crystal people. So here's the characteristics.
Or snowflake.
Oh,
I'm assuming a crystal person and a snowflake are different.
Send hate mail to Chad and Doc at. So here's the characteristics. You're a natural healer. You're affectionate and loving. You're intuitive communicators and or late talkers.
Pillow talk.
Spiritually sensitive, not that kind of late talker.
Oh, I was just wondering.
Spiritually sensitive, a close bond with nature. Appearance of crystals, meaning maybe you've got very clear skin, very clear crystal blue eyes. Very, very light skinned. You have a close bond. Let's see, we already read that one. You're dreamy and you talk about their dreams at an early age. Misdiagnosed as autistic or Asperger's syndrome. You're drawn to crystals and rocks, and you have a highly sensitive body.
Most of these things sound like Edward from Twilight.
So they're sparkly vampires, is what you're saying.
Sparkly millennials.
And brooding. Very brooding.
So it kind of, I'm going to very briefly talk about each one of these so you get a little bit better idea. So natural healers, that's pretty self-explanatory, but they can heal from afar. They don't necessarily need to be in the presence of the person they're healing or even touch them.
What
see.
makes crystal people crystal?
I don't know.
It's not like some astrological thing. Just
I'm just reading what I got off the internet. Shh, don't ask me hard
I was
questions.
just curious. I thought there might be a reason for it.
Google it. No, it doesn't really say anything. It just talks about the characteristics. So, affectionate and loving, we don't need to talk about that one. The intuitive communicator, late talker, because they can communicate through telepathy, or feeling, not necessarily like telepathy, but they can feel what people are thinking, and so because of that, they don't feel like they need to talk early because they get all their communications in different ways. Let's see what other one might not make a whole lot of sense. Close bond with nature. They have a natural affinity for plant, animal, and insect kingdom. They can communicate with nature, which kind of goes back to the telepathy thing. They go to nature for rest and rejuvenation. Now, it does say in here, many indigos do this too. And we're not going to talk about indigos today because I'm not prepared to.
Next time.
We can talk about that another day, the indigos. So for an example, there was a 9-year-old crystal that the author knew who adamantly refused to let her mother buy a Christmas tree because she couldn't stand to have the tree cut down.
Too sensitive.
Very sensitive. Appearance of crystals. So crystal people have large blue eyes or large dark eyes. And they look at us from a place that seems to be very deep. Like from their soul they're looking at you, not just like normal people, I guess. They appear wise and they have an intense knowing stare.
I would have gotten a fake Christmas tree. That's my solution.
I had a Christmas tree once that was a tumbleweed.
Like a Charlie Brown tree?
Yeah, I was in college. I was too poor to buy the $5 Christmas tree at Smith's.
Oh.
And so I got a tumbleweed. And I thought, I will spend $1 and go to Kmart because we didn't have Walmart.
Legit tumbleweed.
And get some green spray paint. And I broke it so that it looked like a Christmas tree.
I bet a crystal child would be okay with that.
I did not have $1 to buy green spray paint, so I had a tan Christmas tree paint. Poor starving college students, a real thing, folks. Let's see. Dreamy, and talks about their dreams at an early age. So they've got an ability to communicate from the other side, even from birth, and they've got oftentimes a full access to memories on the life of the other on the other side. And I guess Good Morning America had a group of indigos and crystals and their parents on the show. And one of the children said that they were fully aware that she was her mother's mother who had passed away. And she had memories to prove it, apparently. So sometimes they can be called daydreamers, and they tend to be very bright. Let's see. It also says that we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of autistic children, so this is under the misdiagnosed as autistic or Asperger's. And they're very sensitive, very vulnerable. Sometimes they will go very deeply within themselves just to protect them from themselves and disconnect from the environment and people. So they may manifest as one of these, but they're not. Drawn to crystals and rocks, that's pretty self-explanatory. You see a rock, you like it.
Yeah, I remember doing that. I'm sure.
Highly sensitive body. They need organically grown food. Many prefer a vegetarian diet. they'll get sick if they eat high carbs, high fat, high sugar, low energy fast food. I think that's just kind of general for everybody.
So I say sound advice.
Yeah.
I think that's good for anybody. Apparently, there's also rainbow children, and rainbow children also fall under this. I've got a lot of things to research. I did not know about rainbow children.
What about warrior children? I had a reading once that told me that Nicholas was a warrior child. Does that fit into that?
We'll look it up. We will look it up. So many crystals have allergies and food sensitivities. So if most of those sound familiar to you, you could be a crystal person. Now I'm curious, what am I? Am I an indigo? Am I a rainbow child? Am I a warrior? I gotta look into this.
I'm gonna have to figure it out.
I'm not a crystal child because I'm too
No,
old.
You are too old. And I'm older than you, so I'm way too old. But not as old as Chad.
I was gonna say we're not even gonna talk about Chad. The closest person
Poor
here to that
Chad.
age is Doc, but he's too old to be a crystal child too.
He's old.
Oh, to the crystal. Yeah, and
I
I
don't
missed
know,
that mark by a while there.
Got the Empire Strikes
And-
Back on his shirt.
I sure do.
Could be.
And not just
1980s.
because of age did you miss that mark.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I don't fit many of those descriptions either. Maybe the dreamy part.
You'll cut
But
up
outside
a
of that-
Christmas tree. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I chopped that thing down, no
Yeah,
problem.
I can see that.
And
All
just
right,
eat.
you're
And
out.
eat fast food.
Yeah, and that's pretty much my entire diet. So, yep, not a crystal child. Sorry, guys.
Aw.
Well, thanks for listening. Last, get your Supernatural Hour swag at advancedparanormal.com. As always, we have a whole bunch of stuff available.
My favorite thing is school's starting soon.
Oh.
I know it's only the end of June. By the time you guys hear this, it'll be end of July. But that's when Back to School comes out, and they have Supernatural Hour notebooks.
Notebooks.
Wow.
Do they have pencils? We should make pencils.
Probably.
That'd be pretty sweet. Mugs,
I have Wisps pencils.
tapestries, flags, T-shirts, bumper
And we have our
stickers,
tapestry back up in the studio.
and the tapestries back up. But man, send your kid back to school with a Supernatural Hour notebook and possibly a pen or pencil.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be pretty
You
sweet.
guys would be the coolest kid in school.
I'm gonna do it.
And check out our shop at the Advanced Paranormal, where you can get all sorts of cool merchandise like sage sprays with lavender, lip balm, essential oils. At our investigation at the Barbary Coast, we had those there, and we had a lot of people that purchased those items because they smelled them and used them and thought, wow, these are awesome. So
Yeah, and the sage sprays have been flying off the shelf, literally. We need to make some more. So,
and we know the person that makes those.
I know. She's sitting right here. We have exciting news about our YouTube. We have gotten over 100 subscribers, so we thank you.
Yay!
If you haven't subscribed yet, keep subscribing. Get your friends to
Thank you.
subscribe. Pretty soon we can have a short name. YouTube has to realize that we have over 100 subscribers, but we'll get that shorter name. And TikTok, I put stuff up on TikTok that doesn't always find its way onto the Facebook page. Not on purpose, but you're going to see different things if you head over to TikTok. So Castle's Nature Studio, he recently went to Hawaii, and so I know he's going to have some awesome pictures of Hawaii on his website. But if you need some family portraiture, I've been waiting to say that word for a long time.
Portraiture. Ooh, fancy.
You said it very well.
Thank you. If you need your picture taken, give Castle a ring eating. He does a good job.
And if you need your dogs groomed, check us out at Rescue Pets Bathhouse, featuring Utah freeze-dried for pets. We love your dogs from the inside out.
And then Boar Off-Road, Backcountry Off-Road Adventure Rally. Hey, they have a longest name as Wasatch Investigative Society Paranormal Studies. They are a great group. If you're into jeeping and getting out in that backcountry, they are your group. But one thing I love about them is they really put their heart and soul into community service projects. And they helped us with Merker, and they were very recently up doing something, I think at Cascade Falls, or something up in the
Cascade Springs.
Cascade Springs, Cascade something with the word Cascade in it. But they are always doing service projects To the point that I think, do you really do any jeeping? I actually see them pictures of jeeping, so they do. But they do a lot of service. They give back to the community a lot.
And also, if you're in the Payson area, Dalton Steakhouse is a great place to get a great meal. And Oteo's in Orem
And Linden.
and Linden. Well, they're right. I mean, Orem and Linden, it's kind of the same.
But there's 2 separate places, so like if you don't like the Orem, you can go to Linden.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's like 3 blocks.
But we've eaten there a couple times, and it's super good. So if you like tacos, what would you call them? They're kind of gourmet tacos, gourmet Mexican food. It's not your standard
Street taco.
tacos.
street taco. It's like the fancy street tacos, and I can't remember what it was that I had, but it was delicious. So go check them out. And we will be investigating there again, hopefully the end of the year. So if you missed that investigation, watch for it because it's coming up.
That's at Dalton's.
Yes, not Oteo's, at Dalton's. Same owner, different store. All right, stay spooky, my haunty friends.
I love you, Nicholas.
Have a good one.
Hey, good night.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.